Welcome to Supernatural Circumstances, the podcast where I take you down the rabbit hole into the fantastic world of the strange, the paranormal, and the unknown. I'm Morgan Knudsen. Come along with me on this week's adventure. Well, this is really cool, guys. We've got a really neat guest today. His name is Joe Tury, and he is a filmmaker. He's an independent documentary filmmaker. And he's been known for directing and producing paranormal, cryptid, folklore films, and usually focusing on the American Midwest. Now, I've known Joe for a really long time. I've done some Women in the Paranormal features with him, which has been a joy. He's such an adventurous guy. And the reason why I wanted to have him on today to talk to all of us is because he's come across a location in Illinois that definitely piqued my interest, and I think it's going to pique yours. He actually filmed a documentary on it called The Pond Creek Monster, and that's going to be out soon. But in the meantime, I wanted to have him on to talk about this weird phenomenon that has become known as window areas. And a window area in I guess, the cultural context of it and the way it's being presented publicly is almost like a hotspot, what we would have known in the old school days as a paranormal hotspot, where a bunch of phenomenon seems to all be happening at once. Now, is it connected? What's going on in some of these areas? Are we implying portals? Are we implying, what is this? How far into the high strangeness realm can we possibly go with this? Well, today, I think we're going to find out. Let's do it. Okay, well, we have to have this conversation because I've had the pleasure of watching your brand new documentary, The Pond Creek Monster, and it's so different for you, like we were just talking about here before we started recording, because you normally don't do this type of sort of cryptid investigation type documentary. You're a little bit more of an observer. So how did this all come about?
Yeah, so I all my other stuff is historical based, where we go to these things that have happened long ago, documented, all that. This is my first modern case. What happened was, previous documentary, Grand Tower UFO, I had to do a lot of boots on the ground research myself. A lot of times I rely on the authors or experts, and I still relied on Michael Huntington a lot on the last one. But this one, I actually did a lot of boots on the ground, went out and found people to interview and things like that. And then look, I do this for fun, but I still try to make it a little bit of income on it. So I have a YouTube channel, and it never has done well. And I thought to myself, well, why don't I start doing some boots on the ground stuff? And I could kind of hopefully experience some of this stuff that, all these people that I interview experience, and see how legit it is, see if I experience anything, right? And just because from doing my boots on the ground with YouTube, that's how I got a hold of Bryce, who's one of the property owners of what he calls Pine Creek Farm. And so we did a little YouTube documentary on it, nothing stream worthy, nothing can go on Amazon Prime or
Sure,
anything.
yeah.
But it did really well, and I thought, you know what, maybe I should try doing one of these. It's different, and I think people respond to it. And again, I'm out there because I'm interested and passionate about the subject, and I enjoyed being out there. So that's how it all happened. Just trial and error, and desire to learn more, I guess,
Well, the boots on the ground stuff, it is so different because I think for many people, like filmmakers and producers and stuff like that, that sort of they get to sit back and document this stuff, but
Yeah.
is so different when you're able to sort of come with people like Bryce, people like myself, and I've sort of been in this interesting position because I've kind of had both of those worlds. Like I've
Yeah.
sat in both chairs. So I know what you're
Yeah.
saying. I know what you mean. And I know when we Jason Hewlett and I filmed Tracking the Wendigo a couple of
Yeah.
years ago, that was another one of those situations where normally, you know, like Jason, because he's a filmmaker as well as an investigator, he was always a little bit more of an observer when it came to the documentary stuff. And then
Yeah.
he sort of stepped in and was like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to go, we're going to get out there. And it's such a great opportunity for investigators to be able to let people into their world as to what goes
Yeah,
on
I mean,
day to
and
day.
I've never wanted to be on camera, to be honest with you, in films, but it's
Too
fine,
late,
you
Joe,
know.
too late.
Too late, too late. Yeah, I mean, but if you look at like Seth Breedlove, like he'll have stuff where, like, he's out investigating. Alexander Petikoff, of course, who's one of my top, top tier guys as far as boots on the ground stuff, as far as I'm concerned. You look at them, and Alex is calls himself a filmmaker. He doesn't go out as calls himself a
Absolutely.
researcher. I don't like being called a researcher. It is what it is, whatever. I'm a filmmaker at heart.
Well,
But
how
yeah, I mean, like I've seen you, like when you're doing your boots on the ground. I'm like, I know that you know where I'm coming from.
Absolutely, and like, that's what's refreshing, I think, about more and more of these types of things coming out, because they're from people like you who don't have, like, a dog in the fight in terms of, "Okay, we're just gonna go out there and fake something. We're gonna go out there,
Right.
we're not making," you're not making, millions of dollars off of distribution deals, and I think that's
Yeah.
important, like, as much
Yeah.
as, our bank accounts miss it,
Yeah.
but
Right.
our
Right.
but I think that's important, and I think it adds a validity to a lot of what's going on. So let's talk about this farm, because I was I was really taken by a lot of the things that not only were you guys experiencing, but also the the nature of this place that seems to have this living, weird, energetic vibe to it. Like, so talk a little bit about what this property is, who owns it, what's going on here.
Well, it's been in their family, the Edwards family, for generations. Bryce's father still lives out there. It's not so they like lease it out to people to for crops, right? There's no animals anymore. That's long gone. Um, and it sits like close to Shawnee National Forest, Southern Illinois. And to be honest with you, like I don't know if because we just don't know. Like, is there something connected to the property itself, or is it just because where it's located, Southern Illinois? Southern Illinois has been known as a hot spot. And the more
Yeah.
the more movies I do, the more I go down there and talk to people. Like this has been going on for a long time. I mean, you could whether you believe in it or not, there's your 37th parallel down there. There's like a long, decades-long history of UFOs, decades-long history of cryptids, not only Bigfoot, but other weird things. It's just like uh, there's this history of violence. There's all kinds of just oddities down there. So is there a pinpoint on the farm? I would be
Yeah.
lying to you if I would say, "Oh, yeah, yeah." But I think Southern Illinois in general it has this weirdness to it, and the longer I'm sure you can relate to this, the longer you're into the subject, the more weird stuff you encounter, and you're like, "Is this all related? Am
Yeah.
I crazy?" Or is it just the world is that odd that there are things that we don't understand, and we try to, like, connect them all together, but that's not necessarily true, but, I mean, Bryce and his father and his family have experienced a lot of weird stuff on the farm, stuff that I've experienced there. I couldn't get it all on camera, but, just you know how that goes too, like, I mean, it's
Yeah.
fleeting moments, a lot of fleeting moments where you don't necessarily think about it at the time, and then as you put the puzzle together, so to speak, later, you're like, "Now wait a minute. I this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. Are they related?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, it's
odd.
hard to see things like when they're happening in the moment. It's sort of one of those things where you step back later and you start to connect the dots a little bit. Like a lot of the phenomenon that you guys were experiencing, like we've got up here in Alberta as well, and so it was very relatable for me because I was going, oh yeah, yeah, no, I've been in areas like this,
Yeah,
like you say, that seem to be a bit of a hotspot. But I think you bring up a really good point where it's like, well, maybe is it just the fact that you now have people living there that are experiencing this
yeah,
over and over and over again? Is it just that piece of property, or is it far more expansive and we just don't know it because nobody's living outside of that
yeah,
piece of property,
yeah. And I never even heard of a window area until I was doing Creature from Big Muddy, and Kevin Lee Nelson
right?
was interviewing Tony Gerard, who lives down there, about window areas. And Tony says he doesn't believe in it, but he's also open to it, which is, I think, is hilarious. He just has to be careful what he says. He's in a position, he's a teacher and stuff,
Sure.
but like, I never even heard of a window area. And I know, like, in the last few years it seems to be the hot topic. Like, okay, we found a window area, we found a portal area. I would love for it to be a window area. I think that's, or do I don't know. In my mind I'm like, this is fun type of stuff, but
Sure,
be
yeah.
be careful what you wish for, I guess. But like, we don't, what is a window area? Is it something that lets things in or out, or is it something that attracts things that are already there? Or, yeah, I mean, we don't know. I mean, so I'm on the side where I think there's stuff down there that attracts things.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's actually a portal, but like I said, I think that would be cool.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, like do you find with this, like when you were talking to the family, because they've reported a lot, everything from Bigfoot tracks to UFO lights to just weird feelings of being watched. They've had. You want to talk a little bit about what they told you, because it wasn't just a couple of family members. It was people that were visiting. It was people. I mean, everybody was
Right.
having experiences.
So I mean, like, what initially drew me there is like my buddy Bryce. I've known him for several years, but he's seen my YouTube stuff where I'm out there Bigfoot researching, if you call it that. And he's like, "Hey, I had a sighting. Would you be interested in coming down?" And I'm like, "Heck yeah," because I want to interview people. That's like in my nature. So
Sure.
went down to his property. He had few a fleeting Bigfoot sighting in his area. I think the year previous to that, he found tracks in the field. And one thing that it doesn't come across in the documentary very well, but they also found three toad tracks. They were like 5, 6 inches.
Yeah.
He kind of thought, he didn't know how to describe them, but he said like dinosaur tracks, you know what I mean? But there's, like 5 inches. And what that reminds me of, if anybody's seen Hellier, they were talking about goblins. So that's what came to my
Right?
mind, is like, is there goblins out there?
Yeah.
Um, so, and then, I mean, they've experienced strange vocalizations. His father has heard several, about every year he hears vocalizations that he doesn't know what the hell is going on, and um his Bryce's wife has had just weird, for lack of a better term, like paranormal type of experiences and feelings out there. His uh Bryce's grandma, when she was driving with Steve, Bryce's dad, and his uncle, a long time ago, I think it was in the 70s, they had a cigar-shaped UFO over the property. And you
Yeah.
know, um and then, I mean, in the documentary, we captured what looks to be a pyramid-shaped UFO. And it's like, oh, that's like my first UFO encounter, by the way. And Bryce is like, yeah, he sees strange lights out there all the time. His uncle has captured orbs in the woods, like on external cameras that are set up around the property. So, I mean, and when I'm out there with my research partner Jason Dickerson, we heard a lot of anomalous vocalizations, what percussion sounds, you
Yeah,
can't, it's a bunch of maybes that could add up to a strong possibility, as I like to,
sure.
but just like it's an old trope, but there's a lot of Native American history there. I don't is that true? As far as like could do they do curses? Did they do curses? I don't know, and obviously, but I always speculate Native Americans are attracted to places that have a weird feeling in them. And we associate, oh, the Native Americans must have done that. Well, not necessarily. Maybe they go to these areas because they can tell it's different,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So, I mean, and there was violent battles with settlers there. There was an old fort in the area. And another thing that I think is interesting, there's a mine out there, so a lot of property has been damaged. There's a pipe
Interesting.
gas line out there that, they destroy a lot of natural resources. So if you want to get to the paranormal or speculative supernatural side of it, is like tearing up the land. Can that create some type of energy that's not supposed to be there? I mean, also Southern Illinois, just the composition itself has a lot of minerals, and I know up in Wisconsin, and there's like certain areas of concentration, like of minerals that are like there's a lot of activity in that area. We have the New Madrid fault line down there. So
Right.
does that create some type of weird energy that could either constitute a opening up a portal or creating energy source for that draws things in? So, I mean, all this is not only in Southern Illinois, but seems to like concentrate on that property a lot.
It's really interesting. Like there's just a number of points that you just made that I want to touch on because I think even just throughout my own work, I've seen sort of similar patterns, like overhauling the property, for instance, creating seemingly escalating the stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
I was investigating an acreage a number of years ago, and the family that lived there actually built their home there. They had to clear some of the woods that were there, built the home. Same type of phenomenon that you're talking about, like lots of cryptid activity. Interestingly, the same three-toed footprints we
Oh, that's
found on
weird.
very weird, but same type of property, like lots of ponds, sort of swampy areas, and then
Yeah.
field, and then farmer's field, and then woods. So, when you were walking through it in the documentary, I'm going like, yeah, this is very reminiscent of this other location
Nate.
that I've been in.
Yeah.
And interestingly, they had the same thing when they started working on the house, and every time they started removing things, the only way that they could get things to settle back down is if they began to replant trees.
Mm.
And put back some of the things that were, or at least put back like an offering to settle things down, and the activity seemed to decrease, which is really weird. And it definitely puts forward the idea that there's some sort of an intelligence there, because that's really the only thing that would create that
Yeah.
dynamic that would happen.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was really interesting that you guys had mentioned when you were out there was um uh the electromagnetic spikes that you guys were experiencing. And the one thing that is, we had that as well, where these our meters would go off, there was seemingly nothing going on. But the one thing that we found, and the one thing that Bryce mentioned in the documentary, which I sort of put two and two together, was he said that there was a water line that was running underneath. And water line will produce electromagnetic fields. And that's
Yeah.
one of the things that we found on the property. It wasn't a water line, but it was actually a stream that ran underground, and it was actually creating this. But there were still other areas in the property like that we couldn't trace these EMF spikes too.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that? What do you think is creating some of that? Because these aren't the only two cases that I've ever heard of where this is happening.
Right. I mean, that's why we try to experiment. I was telling you before, like Jason has one of these, my research partner, and then I bought one. It's a lightning detector,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to give credit where credit is due. So there's a investigative team, Hellbent Holler.
Yep.
So Jesse and Joe, and I believe they're the ones that Jason got the idea from. And the belief is so it detects lightning strikes,
Right.
but if it's detecting lightning strikes in areas that are clear, then what's causing it, right? So like
Yeah.
that's one of the pieces of equipment. And Jason was wearing his during one of the investigation, and it was going off, and there wasn't any storms for many, many miles, like 50, 100 miles away. So it's like, what causes that to go off? So is there an energy spike happening?
Right.
You know, uh, is so what is causing, I don't know, like, I always lean towards, is there some type of geographical feature, kind of like the New Madrid fault line, that can create that energy spike?
Yeah.
So, and a different investigation we were doing, he over the course of about an hour and a half, he had 30 lightning strikes. The sky, this was at night, clear as a
Oh,
clear as a whistle. There's no clouds anywhere, but it just kept going off and off and off. And then a week later, it was in the paper that there was like a series, like I would say in the teens, mini earthquakes in the area that night. There was also a large solar flare that week as well. So it makes me wonder, okay, maybe it's picking up that energy. I think it picked up it's not made to do that, but maybe it's picking up on that earthquake friction, that's happening.
right. Well,
You
what
know?
is it that the lightning detectors is it registering what? Spikes of milligauss? Spikes of like what is it? What
Uh,
it just makes
I'm
me
not
wonder what this
knowledgeable enough to know. I just got it. But
I'm really curious. I'm going to look it up. I'm very curious
yeah.
because I think like
This is
that.
a Accurite, Acurite, Accurite. That's kind of like one of the more popular models.
Yeah, I have not
Uh,
used these either, just for the audience. For the
I mean,
audience's
some people are out there probably thinking, "Oh, well, that's stupid." And I get it. Like, I'm not trying to promote it as fact. We're using equipment that's to do something that wasn't meant to do that. You know?
but I think that's the kind of thing that we have to branch into because this phenomenon is stuff that is so weird.
Yeah,
And because we haven't identified exactly what it is, I think that's the type of investigation that we've got to do. I think we have to start looking at things like how else can we measure this? Because
yeah,
that's the only way that we're going to learn anything. So whether it's like through these different devices, which I mean, if it's going off, that's data. Like whatever that
yeah,
means, that's
yeah.
data,
Right.
you know?
And you saw it on the film. So Jason, I got one of these too. It's a laser pointer, and he was using it. Jason comes from a paranormal background,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
he's very level-headed. But people use laser grids and stuff in paranormal investigation. Well, he was flashing it in the sky toward these weird light anomalies, and they seemed to interact with it. Like,
Yeah.
so I got one myself thinking, it's another tool, possible tool. I hate using definitives, but it's another possible tool for an investigator, I
Yep.
mean, of course we use the normal stuff like audio, like parabolic mic and other
Sure.
external mics as well. IR cameras, infrared type of stuff as well, but you got to think outside the box at some point about these things.
Yeah. Well, you do. I mean that's where we're at because thinking inside the box sure as hell hasn't explained anything,
No.
right? So I mean, so I just looked up the lightning detectors and it looks like it depends on which version you've got, but it works in a couple of different ways. So this is good for everybody listening, because I think you guys are on to you're onto something with this. So they work by sensing the high frequency electromagnetic pulses or the optical flashes produced by a lightning strike. So that's interesting because whatever it's reacting to is not only based in electromagnetics or EMPs, but also in light, which adds a whole other dimension to this.
Yeah,
Electromagnetic detection, they use radio waves as well. So it acts.
I remember. Yeah,
Yeah, so the lightning acts like a massive spark gap radio transmitter. So when a strike happens, it emits a burst of radio energy, particularly in the very low frequencies. And it looks like there's a couple of different versions where you can have a single sensor or triangulation or whichever. But and they seem to be, some of them are space based in terms of like using satellite detection and whatever. I don't think that's what you guys were using,
no,
but it seems like they're working based off of electromagnetics and picking up on light. So that makes me wonder as well. Like, was there a source of light that you guys weren't seeing? Was there do you know what I'm saying? Like, and I bring that up because I've had weird experiences with portal like things that are intensely bright, that are intense, that will show up just seemingly not I guess they're not random, but they're random to us.
yeah.
Um so, I mean, that to me, using something that is based in light detection in an area like that, that's very interesting.
Yeah, so maybe it's in a spectrum of light that we couldn't pick up naturally, you know.
Yeah,
Could be like it. I think it's just something we need to use often. I got one to verify when his would go off to see if there was, you know, if I got the same results as when he's
sure.
wearing his. And again, we got this from Jesse and Joe and from Hellbent Holler. I'm not trying to like steal their thunder or anything. And I don't even know if they still use theirs or not. I'm sure they do, but I find it pretty interesting how we're getting these alerts and there's no weather phenomenon in the area, you know?
Yeah.
So what's going on?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the big question, and these areas seem to have very similar phenomenon happening, which is really interesting. Did they ever report, the family living there? Did they ever report any poltergeist like activity in their
Yeah,
house? Like, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Do you want to talk about that a bit?
So Bryce has seen, um, he's had a couple encounters. I think one of his encounters was what's it called? The man with the black hat, or I think that's a
Yeah, like,
phenomenon.
yeah, Hat Man,
Yeah,
or yep.
yeah. And then he had another one where he I'm pretty sure he saw a shadowy figure in the house and it ran through and actually had a physical affected something physically, like it tripped on something as he thinks it did, like running through
Wow.
the house, which he thought was weird. He also had an experience where his grandma who passed away, she said don't drink in the house, and he was drinking in the house one time and late at night, and I believe something came off the wall like that shouldn't come up, like a picture type of thing,
Ooh.
and he's like, okay, I won't drink in the house, but um, and I'm pretty sure his wife had I think she had some type of premonition of a man on horseback. I can't remember the exact story where somehow there was an actual connection. They found out an actual connection to that. So yeah, he's had poltergeist activity. So we were out there doing our investigation. Unfortunately, you know how this stuff works, Morgan, where things happen when you don't have equipment
Of
running and
course.
people are like, okay, of course that happened, you know, but I swear this happened. We were out there and we heard a voice. It sounded like it was like, you know, 6, 7 meters away. And it sounded like a person going, who? Not like imitating an owl, but like saying the word. And we're like, what's that? And it came from this little clump of trees. It's not like a forest right next to the house, but there's like clumps of trees. I went over there with a flashlight, like a high powered light. There's nobody hiding over there, right?
Yeah.
And this is one of those things like we talk about where you're like in the moment you're like, okay, whatever. And we probably should have investigated a little bit more. 10 minutes later, we're filming, And multiple times we heard a laughter coming, not like an animal making laughing sounds. It was a human laughter coming from that area again. And so what is that? Is that forest spirits? Is that poltergeist activity? Is it um manifestation of something else? I don't goblins?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
We had an interesting experience. There's an area in Alberta called Coal Lake, and we were down there. A friend of mine and I, and we had a lot of it's very historical down in this area, and there's this lot of again a lot of First Nations reserves and things like that, which is,
Yeah.
again, is sort of interesting. But we had a really interesting experience. We had gone into this cemetery, and it was it's sort of this cemetery, and it's attached to a couple of historical buildings that you can walk into and stuff like that. And it's a really beautiful place. You can rent out one of the cabins. And but the friend Sandra, who was with me, she's quite sensitive to this stuff, and she's Indigenous as well. She made a beeline down to this one area, like no reason. She couldn't pinpoint the reason, but walked all the way across the cemetery, and I just followed her because I'm like, okay, something's going on. And the cemetery itself was fenced off with this sort of old, sort of haphazard wooden fence that was built around it, and past that was trees, like very dense woods. And I kid you not, it was sort of the same thing that you guys experienced, where you were going like, hey, I can't see anybody there. I heard knocking, but in a pattern. So it was like bonk, bonk, bonk. And I'm like, okay, that's not that's not a branch falling. That's
Oh
something.
no.
And I said hello, and you could hear movement like low down in the bushes. This wasn't like Sasquatch height or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This was low. And then we heard it again. Doot, 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 doot. And it was like, you're kidding me. Like, this is somebody knocking with a stick on the
Right.
fence. There was nobody there, Joe. Like, there was nobody there. And it was so funny. But I mean, clearly looking for interaction. And so I introduced myself, and I introduced Sandra and whatnot. And I took a stick and I tapped back. I can't remember what just a little
Yeah.
pattern jingle. Lo and behold, what gets
Oh no.
hit back is this little pattern, this little sound. It was just the funniest thing, and then it was gone. It was never saw anything, never saw what created it, but it was just gone. And she was very convinced that it was in her culture with little people.
Yeah.
That sort of
Yeah.
idea, these sort of like
Yeah.
fae type
Yeah.
things. And I'm like, sure. Like, sure.
Right.
I don't know. Like, it was the coolest thing. And like you, it was just sort of you're walking by and it just happens. Like, I mean, we didn't initiate it. We didn't, but do you get that feeling with Bryce's property that there's something there that wants that interaction?
Um,
Or is it like,
that's a
no go?
that's a good question. Like I mean, he talks about it and his dad talks about it that they hear things all the time, but they never feel threatened, so to speak.
Yeah.
So and Bryce always talked about he thinks about good intentions to him. He doesn't carry a gun or anything when he's out there. And I mean that's a good question. Like maybe well he's trying to develop a good relationship if there's anything out there because I mean this land's sacred to them just as well as
Sure.
whoever lived there before and anything that could be there now. So I don't think it's a threatening presence. I know you might find this funny and your listeners, but like, I don't like messing with supernatural, paranormal activity. I prefer flesh and blood creatures, uh, nuts and bolts craft, because if I had to, I could wrestle a Bigfoot, but I'm
You
not,
wouldn't win, but
I
you
wouldn't win. I wouldn't win. No, but like, what can you do against an ethereal entity,
Yeah.
like what, like nothing. So that
Yeah.
stuff scares me. I don't really, even though I dabble in investigating it, I don't really like messing with it. So to me, it's not cute when you hear voices in the woods. It's more like, okay, let's move on.
You're in the wrong
Yeah,
business, Joe.
I am in the wrong business. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's such a great approach though that Bryce has got, because I know for myself and many other people in the field that I've had on the show and whatever, is that I think there's a shift coming where there's been enough of these people that either have these properties or are interacting on a deeper basis, like a more
Yeah.
consistent basis with this stuff, that they're beginning to realize that there's an opportunity for connection here. And I know it's been the fight I've had with the people in the dogman community for the last number of years, is the fact that
Yeah.
there's this horrific stigma that is still, I think, well, it is still having to be broken down by people like myself who've had extensive interactions with them and whatever, that these are not evil beings. It's funny, we have I mean, I've had incredibly wonderful interactions with them here. They're very prolific here. We've got a lot of Sasquatch, we got a lot of Dogman, we got everything. Alberta's
Yeah.
just a mixed bag. But that's the one thing that's been a very difficult stigma to break, is that these aren't aggressive monsters, that there's an energy here that is looking to connect. And then when you go back throughout history, especially in the world of the dogmen, that they had a very strong trade relationship with many people hundreds of years ago, and it's there if people are looking, but they don't want to. I think because the image of this upright canid is it's more valuable to them if they're horrifying. And I feel like with any of these cases, with what you're describing, like this seemingly almost intelligence that seems to be there, I feel like people are slowly coming around to this idea that, wait a minute, there's something there that we can learn from. Do you kind of feel that way too, like going into some of these
Um,
incidents?
for, certainly. But I mean, I also think there's something to the fact that they're not all the same. Like
Yeah,
you're always going to have bad apples,
sure.
or like if you poke the bear many times, it's going to poke back.
Yeah,
So I mean, if you treat something in a negative way, it's going to respond in a negative way. So I think, I mean, and to be honest, I'm, as far as like Bigfoot, I still am strongly in the flesh and blood camp. I'm an aper, and I believe it's an animal, and animals do what they do to protect themselves and to
absolutely.
protect their offspring and their territory. So I, just like I wouldn't go up to a bear and try to pet it, I don't think it's a good idea to go up to a Sasquatch and try to
I would
interact
agree.
that way. So I mean, um, and you're right. I mean, it's more monetarily beneficial for people to portray them as monsters.
Yeah,
Anything, UFO aliens as they're going to abduct you. Dogman is they're going to kill you. Bigfoot is after you. It's a lot more, profitable for channels
yeah,
to go that angle.
yeah.
Um, I mean, I'm out in the woods at night. I don't go solo. I've only gone solo a couple times, but it's still, to me, like, you still have that frightening experience of not being able to see very far in the
Yeah,
woods. So I mean, it's unnerving for me. I mean, I'm getting
yeah.
more used to it, but it's unnerving. I don't know how people do these solo. Like, there's a guy named Mike Wanders. That's his channel, and he goes up in the you know California mountains or Olympics, and by himself in the middle of the night in alleged Bigfoot territory. How? How do you do this? I don't know. I don't know.
I
I
couldn't do it
admire people
either.
like that.
I couldn't
No.
do it either. To me, it's unsafe. Like, I mean, yeah, you're getting
Yeah.
views and you're getting. I mean, to me, it's just
Yeah.
as a researcher,
Yeah.
you just don't do that. Like, I think going out in the woods by yourself, just in general, is not a good idea. Like, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
where you are.
Yeah.
There's mountain lions. There's like,
Well,
you
you
don't
know
have to be
what?
afraid of Bigfoot.
You know what I probably fear more than anything, and it's obvious, but human. I mean, when
Yeah,
when you go to Southern Illinois, for example, I mean, there's places around here that when I go into, I'm like, I need to be careful because I mean,
yeah,
people they could have pod growing fields and or whatever, any type of illegal operation. You don't know, or just people that are very protective of
yeah,
wherever they're at, even if it's a national forest, they're, just
yeah,
so that could be scary. I mean, we were doing research, this was in November, and we came across on basically it's a logging road. There was a vehicle parked back there, and it's not supposed to be there past the gate, um, and we heard voices back there. There was no lights on, and we got out of there, so like who
yeah,
wants to have a gunfight in the middle of the woods at midnight, and that's the scary part, to be honest with
yeah,
you. If you were just looking for animals, that's intimidating enough. But how stupid is it of us to go out and try to have an encounter with the Bigfoot? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do people go out and try to have encounters with bears?
yeah,
No,
yeah,
because it's stupid. So, but
yeah.
we're out there we're trying to have encounters with a Bigfoot, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, no, you make such a good point, and I agree with the whole. People are by far the most dangerous thing. I mean,
Mm,
we've had some pretty crazy stuff happen, and I've mentioned that this before on the show where uh, Jason and I when we were shooting, we had a black truck with blacked out windows roll up on us when we were out
mm,
there, and it's like there's nobody out here. Like, you should not know that we're here. And they came in
right.
with purpose. It wasn't like an accident. It was like they rolled up faster than we could get in the car. Like, it was insane.
Yeah.
And it's like, how did you even know? So that's crazy in and of itself. Like, you don't know who's out there. There's a speaking of YouTubers, there's a YouTuber that is I've got to get him on the show because he's so great and he's so loving and enjoyable. His name's Grizzly Gaz,
Okay.
and he's so much fun to watch. He goes out solo camping with his little dog Fendi, and if everybody that's listening, go subscribe to Grizzly Gaz. You'll so enjoy him. He's fantastic. But he's camped out in some crazy places, and he's had some crazy stuff happen, like people
Mm,
attacking his tent in places
yeah.
where there's no one. Like, there's nobody. So I mean, how many of these cases, even when we think these properties like Bryce's property and the properties that I've been at and stuff like that, even then when we think, okay, it's private property, nobody's out here, we know that might not be true.
That's not
Like,
how it works. No. Yeah.
it's not how it works. Like, there very well could be people. How much of these incidents do you think can maybe be attributed to creepy people walking around?
Um, Hopefully not a lot of them, but absolutely some of them for sure, right? I mean, if you're like like I said, we go to the national forest down in Southern Illinois all the time. So do a lot of other people, and
Right.
there's people out there out of hunting season doing hunting when they're not supposed to be, and they don't want to be caught. And if you catch
Yeah.
them, it could be a bad situation for you. So I mean, and it's such a shame because that kind of like pollutes the investigation. It convolutes the you don't
Yeah.
know if you're experiencing. I'll tell you. So we were investigating this one area. It's more like kind of central Illinois type of area. It's in Peoria County, and there was a lot of reports coming from that area. So we were investigating in there, and we heard the most authentic. It was like an Ohio howl, the most authentic
Oh, wow.
vocalization I've ever heard in my life. You know what goes through my head? I wonder if there was a guy out here that made that noise because
Yeah.
it was not canine. It sounded like a, for lack of a better term, like a human vocalization or a Sasquatch vocalization. It was the strongest vocalization in the middle of the woods I've ever heard in my life. And but in my mind, I'm wondering, okay, is that someone messing with us? And it's a
Yeah.
shame that, when you're when you're researching as best as you can and you're still new to this type of stuff, that comes up. Like, so, I mean, we mark it down, but you can't mark it as evidence, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, it's like unless you've got, drones up that are viewing
Yeah,
miles
yeah,
and miles around you, there's
yeah,
just there's no way to know. And yeah,
yeah,
and that's a frustrating thing, I think, with with some of this stuff. And thankfully for for people like us, we've got, there are individuals or families that own some of these properties that,
yeah,
you
yeah,
can go to and be reasonably assured that
yeah.
there's nobody on there. Like, I think we run into that problem more in remote areas, oddly enough, than we would
Mm.
on private thankfully, as long
Yeah,
as you've got owners that are being legit.
yeah. You're right.
Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, here you've got, I mean, a really reliable family. I mean, these people don't have any dog in the fight at all. They're
No,
just
no.
trying to own their property. So what's next for them, going forward? Do they want to pursue understanding more about what this is? Are they trying to ignore it? Like, what's everybody's stance on this?
I think they they do welcome it in such a way. Ever since, so last year when I did it, when I first interviewed with Bryce, I interviewed with his dad, and just getting talking with his dad, I mean, he 100% wants to know, like, he's like, I'd like to have some answers. And
Yeah.
it's funny talking to him, I'm like, well, have you experienced this? For example, I said, do you hear a lot of owls out here? And and I'm not going with the angle that Bigfoot imitates owls. If it does, I'm sure it's supposed to be a good mimic, right? But Cliff Barrickman mentions that owls indicate there's a lot of food source around there. A
Mhm.
lot of mammals. So and the food chain can builds up from a mouse to, the target species, so to speak.
Sure.
So and he's like, come to think of it, there's certain times of the year where I hear a lot of owls out here. And, just as an example, I'll ask him different questions like that. And then, so that opens up his mind because he hears crazy stuff out there all the time. Like,
Yeah.
all the time. And it just doesn't seem to scare him, but he's like, what is going on? Like, he wants to know, Bryce, kind of like your typical eyewitness. Once you see it, there's something with it that it draws you to it. Yeah, you want to see it again,
Yeah.
and you want to know, kind of validate, did I really see that? Is it legit? Because again, his sighting was like 3, 4 seconds long.
Yeah.
His main sighting, even
And
though
he
he's,
saw it on the side of the road, didn't he? What
yeah,
happened with that?
so basically driving with one or two of his young kids and his grandfather at the time, who was suffering from dementia, I believe.
Yeah.
Um, and so he's driving on his back road. You're talking about like these blacktop, 1.5 lane type of road. That's what we have down in there in certain areas. And, either side, there's pockets of forest, there's fields, and he goes across the creek down there, the bridge crossing, and then there's woods there, but then it opens up, there's a gap. If you're driving, I don't know, I don't know, kilometers, I'm sorry, but like 30 miles per hour,
Yep.
um, he looks over to his right, and there's a field, and maybe 75 yards away or so, he sees what he believes is a Sasquatch digging in the field and just kind of like flinging its arm back, like digging in the dirt, flinging his
Yeah.
arm back. And he said that's what got his attention. And and then he's like, he can't stop because first of all, in your head, and in his head, he doesn't know what, it's still trying to make that a reality. Like, what did I just see? What am I seeing? Plus, he's
Yeah.
got his family in there. He's like, there's no way I'm stopping. So
Yeah.
he has to drive him to the farmhouse, and then he comes back. And by the time he comes back, it's gone. But, you know, um, he's wondering what I speculate, like it's digging for grubs or moles or something, like
Sure.
trying food source, snakes,
Yeah.
anything in a field. Because there wasn't like planted crops at the time. It was May, and they lease out the property, and sometimes it gets planted late. And it just happened to be one of those years. And so we went back the next day to like try to find out where it was digging. It had rained, but he saw impressions, like foot impressions he saw in the area next to the field where he believes something large went through. There was a tree break with a twist in it. Um, and then he puts two and two together because the year before he found tracks going across the field along with those three-toed tracks. Like
Yeah.
you're talking like 15-inch tracks
Yeah.
and 6 inches wide or something like that, so not a human track by any means.
No.
He said he saw what appeared, and he showed me pictures. It's not what you see in a book or in the, where you could clearly see toes and everything, but yeah, there's things that look like toes and tracks. And I posted some of those in the film itself. But and then he's heard what he believes vocalizations from possible Sasquatch up there. But yeah,
Yeah.
so, and people are always like, of course you saw it. Why didn't you film it? You have a cell phone. Try to film a deer going across the road in front of your car and see how fast you can bust out your phone or
Yep.
and hit record. Or so imagine driving by a field with family members and you're just kind of like dumbfounded at what you're looking at. Last thing you're going to think of in a 3 second span, I'm going to pull out my phone and film it.
Well, I think that's the
Um,
thing that people don't they don't recognize, especially like, people that have not really seen something or been in that situation, is the
yeah,
fact that that's just it. It takes longer for your brain to recognize that something is weird or something
yeah,
that's anomalous that is going on than it
yeah,
does to like to get the phone out. It takes a minute for your brain to go, wait a minute, oh, maybe I should be shooting this,
yeah,
and then picking up the phone. I've been in that situation myself, and I've been doing this for almost 25 years, and I've still been in that situation. We had a weird light anomaly down in our river valley, and I watched this thing with another investigator. We literally watched this light for probably, oh god, at least 6 to 10 seconds, and, we were our brains were doing the same thing. It was, "Is it somebody on a bike? Is it somebody with a flashlight? Is it somebody," like, you're trying to stick whatever you're looking at into a
yeah,
category that you get, and then we were expecting whoever this was on the bike with their headlight to come around the corner of the path we were on. We could hear footsteps coming, and
yeah.
we were like, "It's a person." And by the time we got to the bend, there was nobody there. There was no light source. There was nobody there. This was just a weird, anomalous light. And the investigator that I was with is a photographer. He had his camera, but in his mind, it's the same thing. He's going, it's a person. It's a person. And it's like that, it's just, and you don't shine your flashlight or a flash into somebody's face in the dark when they're coming
Yeah,
around the corner.
yeah.
So you're not thinking, I'm going to pick it up and take a photo of it. So there's so much that goes into these scenarios of phenomenon that people are like, man, if I just had filmed it. Yeah, but that's not where your mind goes. It's a really, it's weird. It's just how how it
I'm
is.
smiling because I had a super similar daytime experience, except mine was all audio.
Oh yeah?
I had a audio out and I was listening through headphones and I heard something around the bend of a trail
Yeah.
walking two legs. I thought, okay, someone's about to interrupt my research here, and I'm going down the trail, and they never showed up, and then the walking stopped too,
Yep.
and I'm just like, and like in my head, I'm thinking, what did I just experience? And I mean, I caught the footsteps on audio. I caught the rustling. It wasn't a deer,
Yeah.
and there's nothing there. And that's the type of stuff that draws me toward the weird side of Bigfoot research that I don't want to go that direction. I want flesh and blood. I don't want to go over the edge. My partner's like, well, you got to be open to it. You got to be open to it. I don't want to be, but like this this type of stuff draws you. I mean, the more you're in it, the
Oh
more
yeah.
weird stuff happens where unexplainable things happen, and you try to put it together and you just can't put it together. It's
Yeah.
just like, yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
absolutely. I mean, you mentioned the just sort of on a closing note here, the three-toed tracks. I actually found three-toed tracks as well, and I got piles of photos of them. About this, they were large. They were about 15, 16 inches.
oh wow.
And yeah, and three toes. And I've sent them to so many people trying to identify these damn things. Nobody's come back and said this is what it is. No idea.
Yeah.
But it
No.
was weird. So here's something else to consider that you'll probably never go back to the property again after this, but I'm going to tell you anyway because you might want to pass this on. The when we found the three-toed tracks, the tracks leading they were deep in the mud. They were right beside a one of the swampy areas on this
Okay.
property. So they were quite defined. Like they were really, really clear. There's no question as
Yeah.
to what they are. But interestingly enough, going down into the swampy area, it's what started as deer tracks ended up turning into moose tracks,
Uh,
and then those tracks appeared at the bottom, and neither went anywhere. Like there was no moose tracks going anywhere, there was no deer
right.
tracks going anywhere. There was just these thing. It was really bizarre. And what was even stranger was that this mud was it was so gross and sticky. Like it was the type where you're gonna lose your shoe in it if you
Yeah.
step in it. And so we're down there, and the one lady that I was with was no more than 4'11". Like she was small. And she was like, I wonder how deep my print would go if I took my shoe off. So she did. And she sunk about at least 4 to 5 inches into the mud. These three-toed tracks were indented no more than about an inch, inch and a half.
What?
Yeah. So
Huh.
we were like, what the hell is this?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
this
yeah,
makes
yeah.
no sense. And even the moose tracks were deeper than what this was. But I mean, to look at it, and I mean, I guess you could say, okay, well it's a wider track, so maybe it's dispersing,
That's the first
the
thing I was thinking
weight.
of, but still, no.
It should have gone
No.
further. There's
Yeah.
no way. I mean, this mud was so gross. And
Yeah.
it's like, there's no way something weighing what would have had these feet should have
Yeah.
stayed at that level.
Right.
There's just no way. And then where did it go then? So it just, yeah, really, really, really weird. So anyway, where can people watch this doc? Because it's so interesting and people need to get a hold of it.
Appreciate that. So, right now it's with the aggregator, with most people would think of a distributor. So, and as an independent, I have no control over this stuff.
Of course.
I'm a little guy. I'm a little guy. And so anyway, right now it's on a channel that they're trying to push called Relay, and it's kind of like a Tubi, but it's a $5 a month service. You can actually watch it there for free. There's a 7-day trial if you want to do that. But like Relay's no ads. Tubi is with ads. And then it like should come out on Stash TV, which is a YouTube channel. And then, well, obviously we're trying to get it on Tubi and Amazon Prime. Hopefully that'll happen. It's getting harder for independents, unless you're kind of a bigger independent, to get on these channels.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty confident it, by any means, it should be on Tubi shortly. It should be on, fingers crossed, Amazon Prime within a month or two, type of thing. But right now, try to watch Relay or look for it on YouTube under Stash TV. Of course, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel at Red Room Films, paid members can see these ad free, and as well as my other documentaries ad free. But hopefully, like I'll be pushing marketing a lot. Once it can be seen on like larger streaming services, but like I said, being a small independent guy, I've got movies on Amazon Prime and Tubi, and it's even difficult for me to get on there. Hopefully that
Yeah.
trend doesn't continue and the grip doesn't get tighter than it already is. I think it's
Well,
important. I mean,
yeah.
it's always going to be on YouTube, but um,
It'd be nice to see more of this type of thing a little bit more mainstream, and it's too bad that the laws of the conglomerates are kind of they just kind of clamp down on so much of that. We've got some streaming laws coming into effect here in Canada that are just going to absolutely ruin it for creators like myself or anybody. Which is a whole other discussion, but
yeah.
it's unbelievable especially what's going on here in Canada. We're going to lose a lot of that here
I remember
pretty
you talking
shortly.
about
So
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that
just
was
getting
just
worse.
terrible.
It's just
The
getting,
problem is
you
you
know.
got a lot of people out there throwing together garbage, I should say. You know what I mean? Where it's they're just trying to make a quick buck, and it kind of ruins it for people that are trying to be more legit. And um, that's just the way it goes. I mean, and that's what causes the issues. By the way, I'm going out to Pond Creek Farm within a week,
Oh, that's
and
awesome. Well, we'll have to have you
yeah.
back because you'll probably have a ton of stories. So we definitely have to have you back, and hopefully Bryce will be able to make it as well. And because
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love to chat with you guys more about this and see how it progresses. Like if we can follow this along and see how this progresses,
Yeah,
because
yeah. Well,
it's
month of May
it's
is
really
supposed
cool.
to be the time. Like every May, he's had some weird experience, so that's why we're trying to make it a point to go and maybe
Absolutely.
catch something. I'll have my camera rolling, I guarantee
Well, that's
it.
awesome. Thank you so much for doing this, Joe.
Thank
It's going to
you.
be great to have this out, and when it's available for everybody, I'll make sure it's out on social media and share it and stuff so
I
people can watch
appreciate
it.
you
Because
so much.
it's just it's always a pleasure. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was a really interesting conversation, and I feel like I am no closer to understanding what in the hell is going on here. But I loved how the technology and use of technology is beginning to shift within the paranormal field. Like this idea of using lightning detectors, people really thinking outside the box to try to get some data, try to get some readings as to what's actually going on in these environments. It actually brings me back to another interview that was earlier on in the year with Brandon Elvis when we were talking about the Kentucky Triangle, where yet again, we've got another one of these really strange hotspots, and there's bizarre anomalies that are happening in and around these areas. I really think that the data collection within the space, the things that we can measure, is really going to be important to beginning to understand and see patterns as to what these areas actually do have in common. Now, as speaking as an investigator and been doing this a really long time, that's one thing that I've always looked for when I'm going into any of these scenarios. Are these patterns, can they be related to other cases? Can they be related to other similar signs and symptoms in other weird anomalous phenomenon? And sometimes I think as these new up and coming investigators sort of dive into this stuff, they actually fail to do any background research as to what's actually already been shown and has been presented. Maybe not proven, but things that have already been investigated and maybe solved. I've always been a bit blown away when I listen to some of the panels at some of these cons where they bring up the names of investigators or researchers, for example, that are known in the public eye, but don't know the bare bones and the groundwork of where some of this research has come from. Now, that being said, this is a great opportunity to introduce the fact that the Sci Encyclopedia, which I am constantly recommending to you guys, and I know I must sound like a broken record, is now on Facebook. It's now on social media and Instagram. And I highly recommend that everybody that's into this stuff follows it. A very dear friend of mine and one of my teachers, Dr. Nancy Zingroni, is actually one of the editors-in-chief for this incredible site now. And these people that detail and upload information and studies and reports and biographies and all of these things, these guys are the best of the best. And it is absolutely a foolproof place for you guys to go when you've got questions about some of this stuff and whatever. So the Psi Encyclopedia, PSI Encyclopedia, and I'm going to include a link for that in the show notes so that you guys can go there. But follow them on Facebook, because I'm telling you, you will learn a ton. It's reliable and it's purely scientific. It's really good. I can't recommend it enough. So I can't wait for everybody to see the Pond Creek Monster. It's super weird, as we all love it. And in the meantime, thank you for joining me on this eerie expedition, my dear listeners. And remember, there is no line between the natural and the supernatural. All is consciousness. Until next time, stay curious, friends. Supernatural Circumstances is a co-production of Entity Seeker, Paranormal Research and Teachings, and the 20th Plane. This podcast is a part of the Curious Cast podcast network. You can find out more about me, Morgan Knudsen, and book me for live appearances at entityseeker.ca. You can also email the show at supernaturalcircumstances.com.